Hello everyone, and welcome to today's reading of The Supernatural. Today's chapter, Glimpsing the Future. The similarities between the imaginary Titan and the real-life Titanic seem truly extraordinary. However, skeptics point out that it could be nothing more than coincidence. The author, Morgan Robertson, might have used the idea without realizing that he was predicting the disaster. Other predictions cannot be dismissed so easily. They foretell incidents which seem highly unlikely. On May 3rd, 1812, a British man dreamt that he saw the Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval, murdered in the lobby of the House of Commons in London. Perceval was dressed in blue and his attacker in brown. 8 days later, Spencer Perceval was shot by a man wearing a brown coat, while he himself was dressed in blue. A more recent example of premonition happened in April 1974, when a visitor to the Tower of London heard the screams of young children. A few weeks later, a terrorist bomb wounded more than a dozen children at the same spot. The main difficulty in investigating premonitions is that they are often not recognized as such until after the events they predict. John Donne, for instance, dreamt about a train being derailed at a certain spot in Scotland. It was only after a train accident at that spot that Donne realized he had experienced a premonition. Under such circumstances, it is almost impossible for researchers to be certain whether or not they are dealing with a true premonition. The witness might simply have linked a dream with a similar event when there was nothing but coincidence to link the two. Other people might claim to have premonitions simply to become famous. An important investigation into premonitions revealed these problems. On October 21st, 1966, a huge coal tip collapsed onto the Welsh village of Aberfan, killing 140 persons. Many people claimed that they had foreseen the tragedy. Dr. John Barker, a psychiatrist, decided to investigate. Barker questioned 76 of them. Some of their predictions were rather vague. One person dreamt that the village school had vanished, and it was indeed destroyed by the tip. A few days before the event, one person killed in the disaster had told her mother that her death was approaching. Though it could not be proved that any of the premonitions had occurred before the disaster, Barker noticed some interesting points. None of the premonitions had predicted the entire tragedy, only part of it. Also, the premonitions began about 3 weeks in advance and were most common the day before the disaster. Such a pattern occurs in other studies of premonitions. Some people seem able to predict the future, almost at will. The best known of them is Nostradamus, a Frenchman born in 1503. In the course of his life, Nostradamus made several remarkable predictions. He once stopped an unimportant monk and told him that he would be made pope. Many years later, the monk actually did become pope. In later life, Nostradamus collected his predictions together in a series of books. Some were predictions he claimed had already come true. Others concerned the future. These writings were in verse and often used complicated imagery. They are therefore difficult to understand accurately. For instance, one verse reads, "Near the harbor and in 2 cities will be 2 scourges, the like of which have never been seen." Some people believe this predicts the atomic bombs dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, both large ports, in 1945. Others point out that the prediction is so vague that it could mean almost anything. Perhaps the most remarkable prophet of all is not even known by name. He was a Frenchman captured by German soldiers during the First World War. He predicted that Germany would lose the war, and that afterwards there would be so much money that people would not bother to pick it up in the streets. In 1932 he continued, a tyrant would come to power in Germany, and a war would begin in 1939. Germany would lose this war, the man predicted, and be occupied by foreign soldiers. All these things came true. Germany did lose the First World War, after which inflation made money almost worthless. Hitler gained power in 1933, only 1 year after the predicted date, governed like a tyrant, and led Germany to defeat in the Second World War. How do people like this unknown Frenchman see the future so accurately? Perhaps more disturbing is the thought that the future is already decided, and that nothing we can do will change it. Yes, well, it's all a lot of balderdash. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll see you next time. See ya!